And welcome back from AUVSI Exponential 22 in Orlando, Florida. This is our last live social session of the day. I have with me Dr. Lorenz Meier, the CEO of Auterion, and we're going to be talking about a few things today. I didn't brief Lawrence on what the topics will be, so it's going to be hopefully a fun conversation as well. One thing, Lawrence, that has stood out today: standardization. It has come up in so many discussions that there is this need and wish for things to be more standardized. What is your experience?
I mean, it's we've been driving that for the past 2 or 3 years because we saw that need. It's great to see that now being validated here. I also see a lot of new companies having new airframes, but with very, very similar sensor sets, and so there's a lot of waste and a lot of redundant efforts that I think in this industry are a problem because it's still not a massively large industry that can afford to spend millions and billions of dollars in duplicate efforts.
Yeah, and then the second item, so standardization and then connectivity and networking of fleets. That's the second piece that has come up a lot today. And I think that's exactly, again, the message and the work that we have been putting forward over the last couple of years to make this a reality. And why is it so important?
Well, drones, to get to their true potential, need to become 100 times cheaper in operation, not the drone itself, but in operation compared to what they are today. And that means that you need to look at the whole workflow, like at every single step. That requires information to be not on an SD card. It needs to come off directly. You need to be able to update your fleet consistently. You need to have consistent training. You need to be able to remotely operate, because otherwise you have to bring the subject matter expert every time to exactly where the drone is. And all of that is only possible with connectivity. We've seen it throughout the pandemic where we've shifted to remote work that made some things more efficient, others not. But now you could suddenly broaden your network of people you're working with. And it's the same thing with drones. We really need to get them online. We really need to make them network. We really need to make it easy. As we're saying, we need to turn drones into web APIs. And if up until that point, they will stay a niche that is great for certain purposes, but not a mass phenomenon.
Yeah, and I mean, if we go back in time and we look at what happened in the computer industry, perfect example, we had standalone computers that became powerful by connecting them. We had, in one of your presentations this morning, you were talking about the old switchboards with phones where you had to manually put a switch, a connector on for a phone call. And suddenly today we have wireless technology where we not only talk, but now mostly push data across. And to do all of that in the drone industry, it's not like we're creating something new, but for the drone industry itself, it's a huge shift in thinking, isn't it?
Absolutely. I find it actually fascinating. The 2 years pandemic has, I think, at least helped me to get a little bit of distance from the industry. And I find it fascinating that we're still very much in a remotely piloted mindset. And maybe it's a little bit more autonomous, which means instead of wiggling sticks, we're now planning a mission. But that's remote piloting. And that's the equivalent of your manual switchboard, where you're connecting one phone number with another phone number with a wire, and you need that person, and that makes it so expensive. And so I'm not advocating for having less people in the industry. It's not about cutting the FTE count, because we need to grow this industry, but we need to change the jobs so that you're operating a fleet as a pilot and you're responsible for a whole deployment. It doesn't mean you're flying manually one thing, because if it stays that way, it's too expensive to scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that was most impactful to me recently was when we started to do multi-vehicle support, meaning we have a fixed-wing VTOL flying at the same time through the same ground control, through the same software interface. We're also flying a multi-rotor, and we're deploying a ground rover. And suddenly, we're changing the paradigm of this one operator, one platform concept. And just that thinking by itself is the next step into multi vehicle deployment with a single individual, or then autonomous deployment with no human interface. That's exciting, and that's not decades away, right?
No, I mean, we're doing that today. I actually honestly think that from a technology perspective, like, we have hit that point where we can make this industry a lot more scalable. Now people need to pick up that thinking and go like, well, I really want to have a drone deployment for inspection or whatever my commercial use case is. And what does that mean, and how can you make it the most efficient possible rather than having a set of pilots going out and taking pictures manually. And so, yeah, I mean, we will have more pilots, and the more pilots will fly more systems so that the overall deployment scales up.
Yeah, exactly. So let's take a look at the expo hall. Today's the first day of the expo hall. We've had a pretty busy day. We started early in the morning with a live stream to Switzerland for an event. You had a presentation. We've had a lot of interactions on the show floor. What has stood out for you so far?
I think what is two things. One is I've seen a lot more diversity, to put it that way, in the multicopter space. 2 years ago, there was one company that was present at every other booth. That has changed dramatically. So there's a lot more choice, a lot more domestic vendors. That is like inspiring and cool, but also means there's more of a need for standardization of components, because earlier there was a monopoly, which also brings standardization. Now there's lots of choice, and we need to bring that standardization a little bit back. So we're, as Auterion, we're working really heavily on open standards, on software and hardware to help companies to get there. And then the other thing that stood out is I've seen a lot more VTOL aircraft. Some from new companies, and I think the jury is out if that means that we as an industry are moving entirely over to VTOL, or if it's just a new thing where there is more experimentation, and we'll see again a little bit of consolidation over the next couple of years, because of again, a lot of these products are new, not proven, new companies. So I think we just have to give everybody a benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually very excited because this is what I had been predicting for several years, that we are getting to the point where we have still our multi-rotors, but we're also deploying VTOL. So we're now doing this really multi-layered deployment methodology for different use cases and more use cases that are coming on. And I think it's safe to say that one of the use cases that we have seen pick up quite a bit is cargo delivery.
That, to be honest, like, that's actually quite visible on the show floor with the booth of Drone Deploy, who is the provider to Walmart. And that's 18 months ago, I was a total skeptic of drone delivery. I thought it's interesting and it's a nice proof of concept, but outside of Africa, where Zipline has proven the value earlier, but now we're starting to see sustained, successful operations with good customer retention values across, like in Ireland, we see that in the US. In the US, with multiple vendors and providers, Zipline is expanding and expanding. So drone cargo is here, and it's here to stay.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is. Well, Lorenz, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a good first day. Tomorrow we'll be back here on the show floor, not only answering customer questions and end user questions or manufacturer questions, but we will also be live streaming again with multiple guests. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them through our social network. We are on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram. Connect with us, ask questions. We will get back to you. We want to be as engaged as possible, and hopefully throughout the day today, you got to learn a few things from many of our guests. And that's it from day one here in Orlando, Exponential 2022. Have a good rest of your day or evening.